Hey everyone, welcome back to the Deep Dive. Why you're here, you want to understand things quickly and completely, but no one wants to drown in information, right?
Yeah, those aha moments, that's the gold. And that's what we're aiming for in this deep dive, too.
Exactly. So today we're diving deep into Taoism.
That's right. A lot of really fascinating material to dig through here.
Yeah, for sure.
We have some of my notes, all notes, 323-2025, and then some great talks and a documentary from Taoist master George Thompson, Taoism, Daoism, explained by Taoist master, Taoism's world-changing wisdom documentary, and then Wu Wei, the Taoist secret that changed my life.
Nice. And we've also got that insightful video, Taoism Explained, from Cogito, and a practical guide from Personal Tao to give us even more
Well, that's
perspective.
a great mix.
So we're going to extract the core wisdom from all these sources to understand what Taoism has to say about expectations, how they can actually limit us.
Yeah, for sure.
And then also, it's surprisingly accepting view of imperfection.
Yeah, I love that.
And of course, we've got to tackle the Tao itself, that central idea that can be so hard to grasp.
Yeah, slippery.
Yeah, for sure. But more importantly, we want to see how these fundamental concepts, these Taoist ideas, can actually resonate and make a difference in your daily life.
Totally. I think the most natural place to start is with expectations. I mean, we all have them, right? Ideas about how things should, goals we're working towards.
Right.
But what's really thought-provoking is how Taoism encourages us to loosen our grip on those rigid ideas.
Right. It's like those mental blueprints we create.
Yeah.
They can actually limit our happiness. And that's what the personal Tao notes point out really directly. The more expectations you have for your life, the less you will become. A Taoist lives life without expectations, living in the here and now fully. So it's about
Yeah.
accepting that reality. It rarely follows our carefully laid plans.
Yeah, it's more about flowing with life, being open to the unexpected twists and turns instead of clinging to that one fixed outcome.
Right, and I really like that practical advice from Personal Tao too. If
Wow.
you need an expectation, keep it simple and within your control.
That's great. Yeah.
Like deciding to smile or just enjoy the day, setting yourself up for a small win rather than, potentially setting yourself up for a letdown.
That's a really important difference.
Yeah, it is. And, you know, it's so easy to get caught up in those big expectations. And then when things don't go as planned, we feel disappointed.
For sure. Think about it like planning a picnic. You picture this beautiful sunny day, and then what happens?
Oh, it rains, of course.
It rains, and suddenly your perfect picnic is ruined. Well, not for a Taoist.
Right.
They might just shift gears, have an indoor picnic, find a different kind of enjoyment, in that change of plans.
Right. Or starting a new hobby, right? You might go in expecting to be good at it right away.
Bro, yeah,
And then, when you're not, it's easy to get discouraged.
totally.
But Taoism suggests, appreciating that process of learning itself,
Mhm.
without the pressure of having to be perfect immediately.
And relationships are another great example. Clinging to expectations of how a partner should act, well, that just leads to conflict.
Like,
Taoism encourages us to accept people for who they are, with all their quirks and imperfections, instead of trying to force them into some ideal mold we have in our heads.
it's about appreciating the uniqueness of each individual rather than trying to fit them into some predefined box.
Right.
So releasing expectations, that seems to be pretty fundamental in Taoism.
Yeah, I think so.
Now let's talk about imperfection because, in our everyday lives, we tend to view our flaws and mistakes as things to fix or hide, right?
Yeah, we do.
Definitely not to celebrate.
Definitely not.
But Taoism, it has this surprisingly different perspective.
It really flips the script on how we see imperfections. It doesn't see them as errors to be eliminated, but as natural aspects, even defining characteristics of who we are. And that really comes through in the personal Tao notes. It says imperfections end up being critical defining characteristics of each of us.
Wow.
Without our small flaws, we wouldn't be individuals at all.
It's like those quirks and stumbles that we criticize ourselves for. They're actually what make us unique.
Yeah,
They're not flaws in the design. They're part of what makes us us.
that's it.
And it's similar to the concept of yin and yang, right?
Yeah, like those two opposing forces that are interconnected and essential for balance and perfections are part of that complete picture.
Right. And in George Thompson's documentary, he even talks about how challenges and pain, they can actually be valuable teachers if we're open to learning from them.
Oh, for sure.
So those mistakes at work, the feeling that we don't measure up to some ideal, even a piece of art that has a slight imperfection,
Right.
they're not just negative things.
Mhm.
They can be sources of growth and individuality.
Like that little wobble in a handmade bowl.
Yeah, exactly.
Gives it character, and our missteps, well, they often teach us the most valuable lessons.
Right. And constantly striving for some unattainable perfection. It's exhausting, and it creates so much inner turmoil. But Taoism, it emphasizes accepting both the good and the bad aspects of our lives. As the notes suggest, it's about finding contentment in the reality of who we are in the world around us, imperfections included.
Yeah, that's the key to finding true inner peace.
So by letting go of this need for rigid perfection and specific expectations, Taoism encourages a more flexible, accepting, and present way of living.
Absolutely.
It's about embracing the flow of life with all its unexpected turns and inherent imperfections.
Right, and that brings us to the very heart of Taoism, understanding the Tao itself, this emphasis on following the way.
And right from the start, we encounter this idea that the Tao, it's hard to put into words.
Yeah, it is.
The Tao Te Ching begins with, the Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. It's like trying to grasp smoke.
I love that image.
The more you try to define it, the more elusive it becomes.
Slippery for sure.
Yeah, it's not really a thing. But think of it like the way a river flows naturally downhill, or how a seed knows how to grow into a plant. It's the inherent wisdom and unfolding of the universe.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
So if we can't pin it down with a definition, how do Taoists connect with it or live in accordance with this way? What are the key principles, for aligning with the Tao?
Well, several key principles emerge, and one of the first is this idea of naturalness, ziren, and spontaneity. It's about acting in a way that feels authentic and unforced, embracing spontaneity rather than rigidly adhering to rules or conventions. Zira itself, it translates directly to naturalness, highlighting this core value.
So it's about trusting your instincts, going with your natural inclinations, rather than overanalyzing everything or sticking to a preset plan no matter what.
It's a good way to put it.
Yeah, and then there's effortless action. Wu Wei. And now, this is often misunderstood as just being passive.
Oh, yeah, totally.
But that's not quite right, is it?
No, not at all. It's about acting in alignment with the natural flow of things. Without unnecessary force or interference. Think about nature itself. It accomplishes incredible things without any conscious effort. A tree grows a river, carves its path. It just does.
Right.
And that's the real insight of Wu Wei. It's not about doing nothing, but about identifying and eliminating unnecessary action, freeing up your energy for what truly matters.
It's like that principle in martial arts where you use your opponent's momentum against them, rather than your own brute strength.
Yeah.
You're working with the existing energy, not fighting against it.
Exactly. And another crucial aspect is inner focus and self-cultivation.
Okay.
Taoism emphasizes finding balance and understanding through our own inner awareness.
Yeah.
The Tao is considered to be inherent within each of us. So practices like Yangsheng or nourishing life aim to deepen our connection to the Tao and cultivate a more harmonious existence.
So it's not just about looking externally for some big answer. It's about turning inward to find that connection and understanding within ourselves. And that naturally leads to acceptance and flow, right?
Yeah, it does. It's about accepting life as it is, with all its ups and downs and flowing with those changes instead of resisting them.
Okay, so it echoes that earlier discussion about releasing expectations.
Exactly.
And finally, there's a strong emphasis on individual discovery. Taoism suggests that each person can discover the Tao in their own unique way, not through some prescribed doctrine or external authority.
Yeah, that's a good point.
The path to understanding the Tao is ultimately about accepting oneself.
It's a deeply personal journey.
So Taoism, it sounds like it offers a pretty distinct perspective compared to other major philosophical or religious views.
Yeah, the contrasts are quite significant, especially when you look at their ideas of ultimate reality.
Okay, how so?
Well, many religions, they center around a personal god or creator, right?
Yeah.
But Taoism, it focuses on this impersonal Tao as the fundamental principle.
Okay, so less about a divine being, issuing commands and more about an underlying principle that guides everything.
Exactly. And when it comes to navigating life, many traditions provide explicit rules and doctrines and ethical frameworks. Like, think of Confucianism with its emphasis on rituals and social hierarchy.
Okay.
Taoism, on the other hand, prioritizes naturalness, spontaneity, and that individual understanding of the Tao.
So it's a more intuitive, less rule-bound approach to living.
Absolutely. And then there's the role of effort, and many perspectives, they place a high value on hard work and striving.
Oh, yeah.
But Taoism, through Wu Wei, suggests that goals can often be achieved more effectively by aligning with the natural flow, avoiding unnecessary struggle.
It's about working with the grain of the universe, not constantly trying to force things against their natural tendency.
Precisely. And in terms of dogma and judgment, many religions have, very clearly defined beliefs and systems of right and wrong.
Right.
But Taoism, starting with the premise that the Tao Tao is ultimately indefinable.
Hmm.
It encourages individual exploration and understanding rather than adherence to some fixed set of beliefs.
So less about being told what to believe and more about discovering your own path.
Exactly. And even in the realm of political and social engagement, early Taoism often encouraged a withdrawal from public responsibility, seeking a more spiritual understanding,
Yeah.
which contrasts with traditions that actively engage in politics and social reform.
A more detached, perhaps more introspective approach.
Right. And finally, when we go back to those attitudes towards expectations and imperfection,
Yeah.
while some perspectives might emphasize striving for perfection and, strict adherence to expectations,
Right.
Taoism teaches the release of those expectations and the acceptance of life's imperfections as integral to who we are.
So Taoism, it really seems to offer a path that prioritizes harmony with the natural world inner understanding and a more flexible and accepting approach to life, often differing from those more rule-based, externally focused traditions.
Absolutely.
So this core idea of following the way and living in harmony with the universe, it seems so central to Taoism.
Yeah, it is.
Let's explore some of these fundamental Taoist principles in a bit more detail.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so first up, we've got following the Tao, or the Wu Wei.
Right. And it's about recognizing that underlying order that governs the universe and striving to live in accordance with it.
Okay.
And the Tao Te Ching is really foundational here, describing the Tao as unformed, complete existing before heaven and earth, pervading everything, the very flow of the universe. It's a path, not a destination.
Right. In this path, it seems to be deeply interwoven with harmony with nature.
Yeah, it is. The early Taoists were keen observers of the natural world,
Yeah.
noticing its inherent rhythms and patterns.
And they recognize that humans are an integral part of nature and therefore must also align with its path.
Precisely observing the organic order or the Lind in nature, the way water flows, the way plants grow,
Right.
it reveals the workings of the Tao.
Yeah.
The aim is to truly feel and see the Tao in the natural world around us.
Okay. And then we've got Wu Wei, this concept of non-action or non-forcing. It's not about being completely passive, is it? How does this idea of Wu Wei reconcile with the need for, proactive problem solving in our lives?
Right. Well, it's not about being passive at all. It's more about acting without unnecessary intention or struggle.
Okay.
Aligning with the natural flow rather than imposing our will against it
Right.
based on, rigid mindsets or external pressures. And in the Tao Te Ching, it advises rulers to govern by allowing the natural order to unfold, leading to greater harmony. George Thompson, he uses this analogy of nature accomplishing so much without any conscious effort.
Right. It's about finding that point of effective action without the overexertion.
Exactly. And we can't talk about Taoism without addressing yin and yang, that
Yeah.
fundamental relationship between seemingly opposite forces, that rhythmic interplay of light and dark.
Right, like the shady and sunny sides of a hill, constantly shifting, deeply interconnected, neither being inherently superior.
Exactly. It highlights the interconnectedness and interdependence of seemingly opposite forces, reminding us that both are necessary for balance.
And that naturally leads to the principle of recognizing interconnectedness itself.
Yes, it's not just about those opposing forces being linked, but
Mhm.
the understanding that all things are part of a larger unified whole.
Okay, and how does Taoism help us understand that?
Well, the concept of Kai is really important here. Kai is that vital life force that permeates and connects the entire universe.
Yeah.
Heaven, earth, and our own bodies, they're all seen as reflections of the same fundamental energy, all part of one vast organic network.
It's a very holistic view of existence, emphasizing our place within this larger cosmic tapestry.
Yes.
And in terms of our own well-being, Taoism offers some guidance on cultivating inner peace and contentment, doesn't it?
It does. By embracing these principles, we can learn to manage an overactive mind, reduce anxiety, and alleviate feelings of depression, striving for a state of inner peace. And George Thompson shares stories of Taoist masters like Master Gu, whose inherent joyfulness exemplifies this possibility of maintaining contentment even amidst life's challenges.
So being able to find a sense of inner calm and even joy, regardless of external circumstances.
That's the goal.
And how does Taoism guide us in our daily lives, in the present moment?
That brings us to the importance of being present and mindful. Paying attention to the natural flow of life as it unfolds, and practices like Tai Chi. They're often described as a form of moving meditation,
Okay.
helping us cultivate presence and experience that effortless flow of movement.
So it's about fully engaging with the current moment,
Mm-hmm.
rather than being constantly pulled by thoughts of the past or anxieties about the future.
Right, and closely connected to that is the idea of trusting intuitive intelligence.
Okay.
Taoists believe we possess a deep inherent wisdom, much like the wisdom we see in nature itself. By reconnecting with this inner knowing through practices like meditation and spending time in nature, we can learn to navigate life more intuitively, acting from a place of presence rather than being driven by anxieties and excessive planning. And George Thompson, he has a great example of this. He talks about cooking effortlessly guided by intuition rather than strict recipes.
It's like tapping into that deeper level of knowing within ourselves, a wisdom that goes beyond just rational thought.
Absolutely.
And finally, Taoism acknowledges the constant nature of change and natural rhythms, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Change is seen not as something to be feared or resisted, but as the only true, constant, a regular and fundamentally beneficial aspect of life. It mirrors those cyclical patterns we see all around us in the natural world.
So embracing this constant flux and aligning ourselves with these natural rhythms is key to finding balance and harmony.
It is.
So by understanding and applying these principles, following the Tao, harmonizing with nature, practicing Wu Wei, understanding yin and yang, recognizing interconnectedness, cultivating inner peace, being present, trusting our intuition, and accepting change. Taoism really presents this comprehensive framework for achieving balance within ourselves and, harmonious relationship with the universe.
It does. It's a way of living in accordance with the fundamental principles of the universe.
Now, we've touched on it a few times, but let's really unpack this concept of Wu Wei, this effortless action.
Yeah.
It almost sounds like an oxymoron.
It does seem paradoxical, but it's a cornerstone of Taoist practice, and it's often described as a state of being, a way of living that's characterized by effortlessness.
Okay.
As George Thompson points out, while some initial effort is needed to even grasp this concept of effortlessness, true Wu Wei ultimately involves a letting go of intentional striving.
So you have to consciously try to understand how to not consciously try.
Yeah, it's kind of a mind bender.
It is.
But Thompson offers 4 really helpful insights for cultivating more Wu Wei in our lives. The first is to remember our intuitive intelligence.
Okay.
Just as nature operates with this inherent effortless wisdom, we too possess this capacity. It's about granting ourselves permission to act spontaneously from the present moment, trusting those natural inclinations.
Okay.
And he emphasizes the role of physical practices like sports, Tai Chi, immersing ourselves in nature, as ways to reconnect with and trust our bodily intelligence. And as we've mentioned, meditation is a core practice for cultivating this awareness.
It's about getting out of our heads, quieting the constant mental chatter, and reconnecting with that deeper embodied wisdom.
Yes, exactly. The second idea is to practice emptiness.
Okay.
This involves engaging in daily practices that train our consciousness to be present, reducing that constant stream of compulsive thoughts that often drive unnecessary actions and, create stress.
Creating that mental stillness,
Yeah.
that space where more intuitive responses can arise.
Right. The third idea builds on this, trusting our intuitive intelligence. Thompson suggests cultivating this trust through self-reflection, referencing Tao Te Ching Chapter 4, through philosophical exploration, and crucially, by consciously taking actions that align with the principles of Wu Wei and observing their effectiveness in our lives.
So it's like testing the waters.
Yeah.
Experiencing firsthand that you can indeed navigate situations effectively without always having to force an outcome.
Absolutely. And the fourth idea is to cultivate softness and playfulness.
Cool.
This involves consciously counteracting that inner critic, that relentless taskmaster, with kindness and a sense of joy. It's about finding a sense of liberation in occasionally breaking free from rigid rationality and allowing for more ease and flow in our approach to life.
That sounds like a welcome antidote to the constant pressure we often put on ourselves to be productive and in control all the time.
It is.
So how does this concept of Wu Wei, this effortless action, how does it resonate with our listener, who values clear information and effective action without feeling overwhelmed?
Right. Well, that's the crucial connection. Wu Wei isn't about being passive or unproductive. It's about discovering a more harmonious and ultimately more effective way of navigating life. By minimizing unnecessary effort and aligning ourselves with the natural flow of events, we can often achieve more with less struggle. It's about working in a smarter, more aligned way rather than just pushing harder.
It's about doing what needs to be done in a way that's in harmony with the natural course of things, ultimately conserving energy and reducing stress in the process.
Exactly.
This has been a really insightful exploration of Taoism.
It has.
What are the key takeaways you'd want our listener to hold on to as we wrap up this deep dive?
Well, I think at its heart, Taoism offers a really valuable and unique perspective on navigating life.
Okay.
It encourages us to release those rigid expectations that can lead to so much disappointment, to embrace those inherent imperfections in ourselves and in the world around us, to seek understanding and alignment with the natural flow of the Tao, and to explore the transformative power of Wu Wei, effortless action.
And as we discussed at the beginning, this isn't just some abstract philosophy.
Right.
How can these core ideas actually make a difference in someone's life? A tangible difference.
Well, these concepts, they really can provide a path towards greater inner peace, increased resilience in the face of challenges, and a more harmonious relationship with both ourselves and the world around us. By learning to let go of that need for constant control and the pursuit of an unattainable perfection, by cultivating trust in our own intuition and embracing the present moment, we can discover a deeper sense of contentment and navigate life's complexities with greater ease and grace.
So for that final thought to really sit with you, consider how even incorporating one small aspect of Taoist philosophy into your daily life, perhaps a more conscious acceptance of a minor imperfection, or even just intentionally taking a brief moment of non-doing amidst a busy day.
Right.
How might that subtly shift your perspective or influence your approach to a current challenge?
That's a great point. And maybe as a next step in your exploration, consider delving into the Tao Te Ching itself, or exploring practices like mindful meditation, or simply dedicating more time to observing the natural world.
That's a great suggestion.
Mm.
The journey of understanding the Tao, it's a deeply personal one, and even small intentional steps can often lead to those profound and unexpected insights.
I agree.
Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Taoism.
Yeah, this is great.
Until next time, keep diving.
Keep exploring.